Oh, so you're trying to make this a big deal again, aren't you? My mother stood at the end of the hallway, arms crossed tight over her chest like she was guarding something or declaring ownership. Her voice cut through the cold air like metal scraping across a porcelain plate. That it was the morning after my father died. Winter light leaked through the cracks of the old house's windows, landing on floating dust like a thin veil of cold mist. The house still held the scent of last night medication, the plastic smell of the oxygen machine, and a silence so heavy it felt physical. That I stood in the entryway, holding a folder. Inside were my father's final wishes, the cremation authorization, and the durable POA he had signed 2 years ago, granting me full authority over all important decisions. But I knew that if my mother said one word dash no, none of it mattered, and she knew that too. She loved knowing that. I opened my mouth to speak, but she got there first. You're doing all this just to embarrass me. Your father's dead. Happy now? Now you finally get to kick me out, right? That sentence wasn't just a provocation. That it was a verdict. I in her world. My father's death was always someone else's fault. Her humiliation was always someone trying to ruin her. Behind the kitchen door, the heating pipe clicked loudly, making the tension in the air even sharper. I inhaled, holding the folder against my chest. I need your signature to cremate Dad. No. She spat the word out like she was spitting out a spoiled grape. My father's body was still in the funeral home's cold storage. He hated the cold his entire life. Every winter was a battle for him. The last thing he would have wanted was to lie there, frozen, waiting for my mother to feel ready. I tried to keep my voice level. It's his decision, not mine. My mother lifted her chin, the corner of her eye tightening with satisfied arrogance. And his Social Security survivor benefits, when exactly are you planning to hand those over? I could practically hear my own heartbeat. My father's remains, his final wishes, his dignity all reduced to bargaining chips. And it felt like a needle piercing through 15 years of memories. My father getting sick, losing mobility, being isolated. My mother's coldness, manipulation, affairs, exploitation, cruelty, and my attempts to get him out blocked every time by his gentle but stubborn refusal to leave the house he'd worked his entire life for. The house was so quiet I could hear the low hum of the heating system. I tightened my grip on the folder and said calmly, terrifyingly calmly even to myself, "Fine. You want the money? It'll stay with you. But you're signing this. Now." She froze for half a second. She didn't expect me to give in. Her face stiffened, then twisted into a victor's smile. See, that wasn't so hard. She picked up the pen and signed quickly, casually, like she was signing for a package delivery. I watched the tip of the pen move across the paper. And in that moment, I realized the only thing she cared about after my father's death was money. And the only thing I cared about was letting him finally escape her shadow. Once she finished signing, she tossed the pen onto the table. You people love being dramatic. Dead is dead. Why the extra fuss? I stared at her, didn't say another word. She thought she'd won. She had no idea that what she just signed wasn't just a cremation consent form, it was the line she pushed herself across. The last line. As I turned to leave, she shouted behind me, "And hey, don't write anything too harsh in the obituary. I don't want people getting the wrong idea about how he died." My steps paused for half a second. Then I kept walking. She didn't know in the obituary. Her name wasn't going to appear at all. My father's illness was the background noise of my childhood. I was 12 when my father was first diagnosed with heart failure and kidney failure. Back then, I thought it was a temporary sickness, something like a cold that would eventually get better. But for more than a decade, the illness felt like another person living inside his body, a monster always waiting to drag him toward the abyss. Medication, procedures, follow-ups, hospital stays, the soft wheeze of his portable oxygen machine. All of it became part of the landscape of my growing up, and my mother, she never carried the part a partner was supposed to carry. She was the one who complained, the one who played the victim, the one who told everyone, I sacrificed so much for this man. But inside our home, the person being sacrificed was always my father. Her coldness was a weapon honed over years. There's one moment from my early teens that carved itself into my memory. It was a heavy snow winter. My father was on the couch, his fingers so stiff he couldn't even open his pill bottle. That I was in the kitchen pouring water when I heard him quietly call out, "Could you help me open this?" My mother sat at the dining table scrolling on her phone, wearing those absurdly oversized reading glasses she loved. Without even looking up, she said, "Move your hands. The more you don't move, the more useless you get." That bottle contained his diuretics. If he missed them, fluid would build up around his lungs again. I rushed over, opened it for him, but he nodded at me, whispering a thank you, soft as if he feared my mother would hear. And she went right back to her phone, opening her chat app, typing to another man about how she was basically a widow in this marriage. That was the first moment I felt it clearly. My mother was not an ally. She was an enemy. She spent years telling people she was separated and getting divorced, yet never left. Once my father's condition worsened, my mother started performing for outsiders. She told everyone, "We're basically separated. We're not husband and wife anymore. I'm about to move out, planning to remarry someone else." She didn't say these things to leave my father. She said them to gain sympathy, attention, and a shiny victim identity. But what she actually did was remain in the house my father paid for. She used his pension for utilities. She maxed out his credit cards. She never left. She couldn't bear to leave the income. And she couldn't bear to give up the victim narrative. That it was her dual survival strategy. To the world, I'm trapped in a terrible marriage. At home, you all exist to accommodate me. I tried to save my father, but it was like running headfirst into a wall. I begged my father for 10 years. "Come stay with me. I can take care of you. You know she's not good for you. You're getting worse like this." But my father always shook his head. "That house took me 30 years to pay off. It's the only thing I have to leave behind." He couldn't leave the house, and he couldn't face the truth that my mother didn't care about him. It wasn't stupidity. That it was the last bit of pride. An aging man clung to a refusal to admit his life had become a tragic joke. So he chose to endure the coldness rather than confront the collapse of his marriage. Every legal route failed, and I realized reality wasn't going to save us. The first thing I did after I turned 18 was see a lawyer. I asked, "Can we force her to move out? Can we sue her for neglect? Can we transfer medical decision-making away from her? Can we protect my father from her exploitation?" The lawyer scanned the documents, set down his pen, and said, "This is civil. Unless she directly endangers his life, we can't intervene." It felt like the door didn't close, it was welded shut. And my father finally agreed to move in with me, but only to die. That he moved into my home right after Thanksgiving 2022. I was helping adjust his oxygen tubing when he whispered, "I want to go home. But if I go back, she won't let me live in peace. I'll spend the last bit here with you." That was when I understood he didn't stay with my mother out of love. He stayed because he was afraid. Afraid of her anger, her threats, her punishments, her emotional starvation, her control that I in my home. For the first time in 15 years, he got to be a patient cared for, respected, acknowledged. His last days were the calmest he'd had in over a decade. After he died, the only thing my mother cared about was money. When I handed the documents to the funeral home, they said, "We still need your mother's signature." I knew what was coming, but I didn't expect it to be this fast. She refused not out of grief, not out of religion, but because, who do you think you are to decide anything? You're not his wife. Then she added a sentence I will never forget. Give me his social security benefits, and I'll sign. My father struggled for breath until his last moment. My mother never visited, never called, never cared. But for money, she held his final wish hostage without hesitation. She thought she won when she signed. She had no idea that was the moment I decided. The world would finally know who she was, starting with the obituary. Writing the obituary was the first time I felt my father was truly free. That I sat at my desk for 3 hours straight, typing that I in the obituary. I wrote about his career, what he loved, how hard he worked, his 15 years of resilience, his kindness as a father, friend, and neighbor. But I did not write a single word about his wife, his marriage, a surviving spouse, any partner at all. That blank space was louder than any story. My mother's breakdown was the first time I saw her lose control. After the obituary was published, the calls started. My aunt, my grandmother, old neighbors, church friends. Why isn't your mother mentioned? Weren't they married? What happened? I simply answered, because she was never a wife, and she doesn't deserve a place on the last page of his life. My mother fell apart after the first call that I heard her shouting over the phone. She's defaming me. She's ruining me. She's always hated me. But for the first time, people didn't fully believe her. She panicked, frantic, disoriented like an animal stripped of its fur. That's what abusers fear most. Not being accused. Being seen. That I didn't finish my revenge that day, that I only delivered the first cut *** by the seventh phone call. I knew something bigger was coming. Her facade had started to crumble. The suffering wife persona she'd built for over a decade was unraveling, piece by piece, with every factual answer I gave. But this was only the beginning. After my father died, she thought she could keep manipulating, lying, and using me like she always had. She thought signing that form meant she won. She had no idea he spent years in therapy, gathering records, documenting everything, not to cry over it, but to make sure that one day she would face the one truth she had avoided all her life. She is not the victim. She is the perpetrator. This isn't the ending. This is only the prologue.